You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Does happiness grow from keeping an even keel, or does keeping an even keel free us from chasing happiness? Join me for a thought-provoking perspective on happiness. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. It is easy to forget that peace of mind is not about chasing constant happiness, but about learning to live with the full range of our emotions. This episode explores how we can find an even keel in an unpredictable world, and why acceptance may be one of the most overlooked skills for well-being. Lybi is the executive editor of Psychology Today. In addition to producing the print magazine, she also guides its website and blog platform, which hosts more than 900 authors, academic researchers, and journalists. She edited a Psychology Today book series covering topics such as anger, food addiction, and bipolar disorder. She has a blended family of 5 adult children and lives with her husband in Westchester, New York. Let's meet Lybi Ma. Hi, Lybi. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because how to be less miserable, I feel, is such an important topic, especially in today's world, that all of our listeners can really benefit from. Thank you for being here today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure to have you here. I feel that we have a lot to talk about. And would you like to start us off with a little bit about your own journey or your own story? Maybe the pieces that you feel connect to what you do today, maybe a bit to what we'll be talking about, which is your book as well, and give our listeners a little bit of an insight of who you are.
You know, this book started because of COVID, and I noticed people doing well and other people not doing well. And of course, you know, introverts probably were fine with, well, no connection. I'm fine with that. Not totally, because everybody needs to be connected in some way. So it just got me curious about how to handle your mood state. And you won't find the word happiness on the cover, only because I grew up in an Asian household and my parents did not run around asking, "Are you happy today? Why are you sad?" They just didn't do that. And I carry that through to adulthood when I had my own kids. And the kid may say, "Oh, I'm so unhappy. Why can't I be happy?" And I just thought, well, you know, I think we should go for contentment or some peace within yourself rather than this, I've got to be happy. I have to be upbeat all the time. Well, you know what? You don't. You don't have to do that. And what's so horrible about sitting all your uncomfortable emotions, it's okay. It's fine. And we can accept it. I think that we don't accept how things come out or don't accept the ambiguity of life. It's just very hard. And we think that we should be upbeat and happy all the time, which I don't believe in that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it makes me very curious as well, because of course you see this portrayed in the media that if we are to have a happy life, we need to be smiling and bubbling with energy. It's sort of this expectation, I feel, in the Western world. And when somebody doesn't do that, we automatically assume something's wrong. it might not be. We're maybe just neutral, content. We're just in the moment. So I find that very interesting that you point that out.
Yeah, well, that is actually quite an Asian perspective. Okay, so today I'm not feeling up. I'm going to sit here with that feeling of not feeling up, and that's fine. And there is quite a lot of research about emotions and how you should just sit with them. Their negative emotions are not bad, but we make them bad. They're just there. You wouldn't feel positive if you didn't feel negative sometimes. So it sort of balances it out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. We wouldn't know one without the other, without that
Right.
contrast. Do you feel there is, in the research that maybe you have done also in writing your book, do you feel that this is also maybe a generational change a little bit? I feel that when I look back sort of at my grandparents and parents, there wasn't that propensity to always, show joy or go through all the emotions. It was really just, yes, you deal with it. As we have come sort of more into my generation and also some, the kids I meet from my friends and that, I feel like that has changed a little bit, even that expectations. Have you found any of that as well in your research?
Yes, there is more of a pursuit of happiness push, I feel. I see that more. They have this idea of the bucket list. It's like, I think the bucket list is, oh, that's nice, doing things that are fun, great. But there's been great research on the hedonic adaptation where we have a set level of mood. So you may, I don't know, go to the opera and have such a wonderful, uplifting moment, and you're joyous after the opera, but you always come down. You don't you end up where you normally are, and people have their set level. Some people are very grumpy. That's how it is. They're born that way. Some people are more upbeat and they're born that way. And you can lift it, but you go back to where you are. I mean, you can change. Sonia Lyubomirsky at UCLA took this idea and found that you can lift your mood. So you have 50% of it is innate mood level, and then you can lift it a little. And by that, you have to do things for yourself. You have to eat right, exercise, sleep right. All the basic self-care needs, and you have to stay connected with other people. That's really important. Some need to less than others because of their personality type, but everyone needs to be connected.
Yeah, I feel that human connection, and definitely there's some research on that as well, is crucial to our mental and physical well-being. So definitely that component as well. But of course, depending on where your baseline is at, it will depend whether other people really like spending time with you or not. So you make an important point there that we have this baseline. We can lift that, but we kind of, I think at the core, we just are how we are with our mood. So that is really fascinating as well. Now, you have written a book and it is called How to Be Less Miserable. And what made you want to write that book? Was it something that you experienced yourself, or what made you sit down and want to write a book about that?
Well, as I said, it started with COVID. I was just watching people and thought it was quite interesting. And, with my day job, I see a lot of research coming in, and I oh, this is interesting, and I'm going to put this aside and think about that. And I realized I had a lot of information on how to be less miserable. I don't want to say how to be happy because that doesn't work for me. But the negative mindset is a evolutionary byproduct. So we are evolved with a bias toward negativity. So we get stuck in distorted thinking. And that happened because ancient man did not have to worry about the worries we have. They had to be alert because there could be something out there, an animal that could eat them, right? And it was more important to just be alert for danger and something bad that could happen. So we have kept this with us. And it's sort of it's called a mismatch. I mean, walk outside, you're not going to get eaten, but we do this in our daily lives. We have this bias, and so that insults and grievances are all that stay at top of mind rather than the good things that happened. Oh, this person at work said blank to me, and that was really insulting or whatever. So we tend to think about those things and collect them. We collect the grievances. It's sort of interesting that we do that. And I certainly did that I'm divorced, and I certainly did that after my divorce. Oh, I'm going to be just mad for the rest of my life. No, you know what? No, I'm not going to be mad for the rest of my life. That is not a good way to go. The other thing is that news media and politicians know that we need to be alert to negatives and danger. And a politician is not going to win on a platform of joy. We have to be alert. So that's sort of interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, that we are wired for that negativity, really.
We want to look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you pass people on the street, you notice a nice looking person and okay. But what really registers when you pass people is you remember the person that looks shady, especially if it's dark out, and you want to be careful, because if you're not careful, then you could be putting yourself in danger. That's how we are.
Yeah. I suppose where that begins to impact us is when we only focus on that, or we're very focused on that, and we don't have a balance to that. I feel that a lot of negativity does impact our mental health and can also impact our physical health. So I like the idea that you wrote a book about being less miserable. I feel there's a bit of a balance there that readers could achieve. Maybe not, to these happiness level or the ecstatic level that media says we should be coming to, but to a balance where, because we are wired for this negativity, maybe we can counteract a little bit of that and come sort of to a balanced, more balanced state. So how have you dealt with that in the book, and what have you found around that? Or do you feel that, being miserable is perfectly fine in life?
No, you don't want to be, people don't want to be miserable. I don't want to be miserable. I want to stay at an even keel, a steady boat on calm or a stormy seas. It's just steady. I just want to be steady. That's the way I want to be. I should note that we need to remember, or I try to remember for myself, that negativity has a lasting impression. It makes an impression on us, and we keep it. That's one thing we need to remember. And oh yeah, that's true. Well, maybe I can let it go. Maybe I can let go of that negative thought. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, that makes sense. And there is a lot of research to support exactly what you just said, right? These
right.
harmful effects of when we actually hang on to these negative imprints as well. So that does make a lot of sense. I agree with you. I don't like being miserable. So I think that balance, that even keel that you speak about, is really important for our own health and healing as well. So how do you go about that in the book? How do you actually suggest that people become less miserable? Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
The first thing we should realize is that the brain wants to repeat things. It's part of the default mode network in the brain. It's interconnected brain regions. And That is the network that kicks into gear when you're doing a mundane task or driving down a road that you know, and the mind just all of a sudden does this thing. And, sometimes the network is good. You can fantasize and you can daydream, and that's creative and nice. But then you can also get stuck on a grievance that you have, that you've collected. It just repeats and repeats. Yeah, you're sweeping the floor and there it goes. So-and-so said that to me. You do that over and over and over. Being aware of it is the first step. Oh, that's the default mode at work. Okay, that's great. I've identified that. And also, if you are aware of that your mind wants to do certain things that are not helpful, if you're aware of it, you can counter it. Do you have some clue of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I feel that if we're not even aware that there is a problem, we certainly can't take any steps to do anything about it. So that first part of the awareness, what you're touching on there, I feel is super important if we want to make any kind of changes, because if we don't know we want to change anything, we can't actually change anything. So
right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
If your mind is alert to your distorted thinking, because we do a lot of things in the brain. We jump to conclusions. Oh, that date I went on, he hated me. Or fortune telling. Why would they call me back? Because I am a loser. Or you mind read. I know you're thinking about me and it's bad. All or nothing. No gray area. I will not be happy until the end of time. That kind of thing. Or catastrophizing. The worst thing happened and it's going to be that way forever. It just, these sort of things pop into the mind, and it's just like, you know what? That's just the mind wanting to think not realistically. It's not being realistic about what's really going on. So when we're aware, we can do something about it. And another researcher who, well, actually, it's not just him, but other people, a few, but Ethan Kross put it out well. He talks about using the fly in the wall method. You are not inside yourself. You become detached and you're a fly on the wall and you're watching the movie of you, which that's cool, and even if you decide that you're going to talk to yourself, and self-talk is just can go so awry, you can speak to yourself in the first person. Oh, Libby did this or that, and she thinks she made a fool of herself. You're kind of detached a little bit. It's a little bit Buddhist. So that is a step toward trying to fight this push to be negative.
Yeah, I hear a few different pieces in what you're saying, all very, very interesting. I think the first part that I hear out of the awareness is that if we don't come to this place of awareness at some point, we will probably keep believing all of the negativity and all of those things that you mentioned, like the catastrophizing and the all or nothing, all of those things, because that changes really when we come into a place of awareness where we can actually distinguish that that's all of those things that you were talking about that our mind is just throwing out there. So that's very fascinating when our listeners actually start building up some of that awareness and can say, oh, I was just catastrophizing there, or I was just doing that there, because that becomes part of then being able to step into that change. And the other part of that too is that with all of these thoughts that are going on in our head every day, there are, tens of thousands of opportunities to tap into negative self-talk and negative thoughts. So yes, absolutely, interrupting those and becoming aware of those can make such a huge difference in our lives as we are starting to sort of, interrupt those cycles a little bit where we might fall into the just more comfortable place of believing all of that all the time. So wonderful. Yes. Thank you for pointing those out. And of course, taking a step back a little bit and seeing ourselves in the third person can help us become a little bit more aware and build that. So those are great steps, I feel, for our listeners also to try out in their own lives and see how that makes a change. Imagine yourself as a fly on the wall. Imagine looking at yourself, talking to yourself. How does that change things? How does that impact you? I feel that would be a really curious adventure as well.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I think that some people have a lower frustration tolerance. They get, not knowing what's going to happen is very hard. And a lot of life is not knowing. You just don't know. So we have to counter it that way as well. There was a study with electric shock. I thought this was very interesting. So if people did not know they were going to get this electric shock, they felt more stress. But people who were told they were going to get this electric shock had less stress. I just thought that was so interesting. We do not like not knowing.
Yeah, I feel uncertainty certainly is
Right.
one of those
life is
places.
so uncertain. Yeah. Read the newspaper and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't. This is horrible. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. I'm going to put that down.
How do you work with that personally, with that uncertainty? You've had life experiences that created uncertainty as well. You spoke about a divorce before, and of course, the situation today as well, and around the world. How do you deal with that uncertainty to bring yourself to that place of balance?
What happens with life unknowns is that it can turn into an opportunity. Have you ever noticed that lucky people are always lucky and unlucky people are always unlucky? Have you noticed that? I have. Why is that guy always lucky? I found $10. It's just sort of funny. Like my husband is funny. He's just like lucky and job opportunities and things happening. He's just open. He is an open person. And that's amazing. That is really amazing to be open. You keep on opening, oh, that didn't work out. What happens is all people have the same number of unlucky encounters, but the lucky person just keeps on opening every door, every next door. And you just keep going. And I think that's how he does it. Quite nice. Yeah, being more open and accepting and moving on. Accepting is quite important, and it's Buddhist. Have you heard of the acceptance commitment therapy method?
Not in exactly those words. But
okay, well,
maybe I've heard of components of that.
Yeah. So it was created by Stephen Hayes at the University of Nevada, I think. And I love him. He's just amazing. And he writes for Psychology Today. And I love reading what he says. And a lot of it is very Buddhist. It's about just accepting how things are. And that doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to lay down and die. I accept, I give up. No, okay, I accept that I got divorced. Well, you know what? I'm going to make the most of this. And I have remarried to a wonderful man. The lucky guy next door. And I become friends with my ex. So in fact, the two of them, my ex and my husband, have a wonderful bromance going. So that's quite funny. And it turned out to be quite a rich and beautiful life that happened. So I didn't lay down and just say, I accept and I just give up. No, I took the advice of opening doors and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I feel that's a great difference to point out, and in the giving up and accepting. I feel like those are two different things that we're talking about. So yeah, that's good for our listeners also, maybe to distinguish in the accepting that we sort of, I feel in accepting, we're putting ourselves back into the flow of things. We're not no longer resisting.
That's right.
In giving up, we're just giving up. We're not moving with anything. we're just giving up. So yeah, I feel that's a great distinction that you're making there. And Libby, do you feel that anywhere in this, there's also maybe a need for or a place for forgiveness or self-forgiveness? I feel in a lot of these times when we're very unhappy, we're very unkind to ourselves, and those negative thoughts and self-talk can just be so devastating. Have you come across that at all in your research or in your life, or do you feel that there's a space for that?
Kristin Neff, have people talked about her? She's an amazing researcher who has done NEFF. I'm going to tell you that because maybe people should look her up. She has talked a lot about research, quite a bit on compassion, all kinds, kindness to oneself, kindness to others, and how we can show grace. Yes, and especially showing ourselves grace. We don't do that a lot. We just want to, you have this negative track going on, and what's easier? Where I'm going to just self-sabotage. I'm going to numb myself. I'm going to beat myself up about this negativity I have in the brain. It's easier to do it that way than to sit down and say, you know what? I'm going to give myself grace. That's kind of hard to do for a lot of people. They want to self-blame and then turn to substances to numb it. It's so easy to fall into a bad habit rather than be kind to yourself and just observe your thoughts, but in a detached Buddhist way.
Yeah, we all look for ways to cope, right? So some of those ways to cope are more healthy than other ways. So yeah, absolutely. And that is beautifully said, because I do feel that sometimes when we come across things in our lives, we do need to look for ways to cope. So it is good to know that there are some of these ways that are healthier for us, as working with compassion and those kind of things. So yeah, and thank you for bringing up the resource as well. I hope our listeners go and look that up and see what's available with Dr. Neff is, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that will be helpful as well. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, do you have like a daily practice or something that you like doing that you could share with our listeners? Maybe they could take that away from what we've talked about today.
Sure. I just had my yearly checkup, and she says, "Oh, this is great. You eat right, you exercise, you sleep enough, and you have friends. Those are great things." And I do all that, and it really, really makes a difference. On top of it, I have, this is going to sound trite. My brother says, "Oh, you're so trite." But you know what? Yoga works. When I started doing yoga, I'm quiet. My husband bought me a brass bowl, and I bang it, and I go through the poses, and I just think of nothing. And I'm very mindful, and I breathe. And while I'm doing it, I'm in the flow of life, and I show myself compassion. I'm grateful for other people. These are all things, and I try to do it, outside, so that you can really feel that you're in the trees, because nature helps you. Yeah, it's being with nature and breathing and being mindful of the present moment and being grateful to ourselves and others. It helps.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And apart from the basic things that we do to care for ourselves, as you said, diet, exercise, social connection, proper sleep, hydration, all of the basics, I do feel that nature is such a wonderful component. And even if you live in a city, you can get some of that if you go to a park, or maybe you can take a
Yes.
day out, take a bus somewhere or take the car somewhere, and reconnect yourself with
They've
that.
done studies on just doing that, like sitting under a tree in a park and how that changes the mood level, or even having a plant on your desk. It's amazing.
Small ways, right? How we can
small
reconnect.
things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Small things.
And I do recommend to our listeners as well to start a gratitude practice if you have not yet. You touched on that as well. I feel the gratitude practice also brings some of those other emotions in that help balance out the negativity. I find it extremely hard to be grateful and angry at the same time, or grateful and irritated. It just doesn't really work. And so when you do a gratitude practice, you kind of end up being in that moment. As you said, also with the yoga, you just end up being present in that, and that helps. So absolutely. Thank you for sharing these wonderful things. And tell us again, just the title of your book and how our listeners can get a copy of it. I know by the time this episode airs, your book will be live and available. So share with us how we can find it.
You can pre-order right now. It'll be out in October, and the title is How to Be Less Miserable. That's it.
Perfect. And I assume this will be on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and
perfect.
All those places.
Amazing. And we will link to Lybi's book in the show notes as well, so you can check there for how you can get a copy of it. Of course, if you're located in the US, you can just buy it on Amazon, and all the other places that have the different country Amazons, you can find it there as well. So I encourage you to have a look and see what nuggets are in the book for you. We can all use a little bit more balance, a little bit more healing, and maybe a little bit more self-compassion and gratitude in our lives. So thank you for sharing this work that you have created. Thank you for sharing those resources and your own experiences. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And thank you for spending this time with our listeners and with me and sharing your experience.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take really great care of yourself, Lybi.
You too.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.